So I went to see the Barbie movie yesterday, and I just want to know, who wrote this? Hi everyone, my name is Nancy, and welcome to my channel, and this is my honest review of the Barbie movie. I'm gonna tell you everything they did wrong in this Barbie movie and a couple things they did right, I guess. Let's get right into it. So the first thing they did wrong is that they made this movie too freaking political. It was so unnecessary. Why couldn't they give us something similar to a Toy Story or a Life Size, the Barbie movie that stars Tyra Banks and Lindsay Lohan? Why did they have to have this agenda to piss off right-wing conservatives and appease to left-wing liberals? The opening scene of this movie was actually pretty terrifying. It showed little girls playing with baby dolls and then bashing their heads into these rocks to seemingly reject the baby doll so they can play with Barbie dolls. Anyone who has studied cinema over time and its effects on humanity fully understands that cinema is not just about entertainment. Cinema has the power to influence human behavior. There's a well-known saying that says, whoever controls the media controls the mind. And that was so apparent in this film. They were trying to push this notion of white feminism. The point of this movie was not to entertain its audience. The point of this movie was to brainwash. There's even a line in the movie that uses the word brainwash. You gotta pay attention. The line goes something like, you're either brainwashed or you're ugly or weird. You gotta pay attention to this stuff. It's right in your face. This political verbiage, the things that they use in this film, it wasn't even hidden. It was like literally shoved in your face. At one point in the film, Barbie has to go into the real world because she starts to malfunction. She has to look for the human who is sad and causes her to malfunction. She believes that it is a young girl, but ultimately learns that it is the mother of this young girl. She goes to the girl's school and confronts her, to which the girl rips her to shreds, calling her a fascist. Barbie storms out crying and says, how could I be a fascist? I don't control the railways and commerce. But you control and manipulate Ken throughout the whole entire film. The movie also pushes the idea that a society can only function under patriarchy or matriarchy. They literally shove the word patriarchy down our throats over 10 times in this film, as if once wasn't enough. Now, I also want to say that there's this shift of power between the men and women throughout this film, and it also comes across as very divisive. You would think towards the end of the movie that they want to come and unite. No, that's too predictable. So, again, this idea that a society can only function in extremes where the men are in control or the women are in control is very, very, very problematic. This movie was so political. My prediction is that it is going to win an Oscar. And we all know that's all politics as well. The reason why it's going to win an Oscar is not because it was a great film. The reason why it's going to win an Oscar is because it's going to do what's called positive reinforcement, which means the people who watch the movie and actually support the movie and the messages that it was giving out, it's going to affirm something in them. Like, see, it's a good movie. See, it won an Oscar. Look, see, you people who don't like it, you don't know what you're talking about. It won an Oscar. And that's all a part of the agenda. The next thing wrong with this movie was the cringe musical numbers. Now, I will say that the musical number towards the beginning of the film, it was actually good. I'll be honest, it was good, but then they killed the whole number and made it horrible when Barbie said, "Do you guys ever think about death?" It was like, what? And there's also like another number with the Kens towards the end of the movie that was also very cringe. And that was when I was like sitting in the theater, like, when is this movie gonna be over? We didn't come to see Barbie the musical. We didn't come for that. You know, maybe one number, cool. There were some scenes that literally just 5 minutes too long. 5 minutes too long. There were scenes that didn't even, there were scenes that didn't even need to be in the movie. So this is Alan, who at one point in the film was actually fighting a group of construction workers who was building a wall, a play on Trump. Now let's take a minute to dive into the plot of the Barbie movie. The plot of this film was actually horrendous, and the writing of the script was actually very lackluster and lazy. I'll try to summarize the plot the best way that I can. So In the beginning of the film, Barbie's just living her best life, and all of a sudden she starts to malfunction. She has to go into the real world to figure out what's human inside. She finds out the human inside is the mother of the daughter that she thought was actually the one causing her to malfunction. So from there, she has to troubleshoot that and figure that out. While she's in the real world, she also is being chased by Mattel to get put in this box so that she can get sent back to Barbie land. She goes to the real world with Ken. Ken ultimately leaves her in the real world. He then goes, once he discovers patriarchy in the real world, he then goes back to Barbie land and takes over, okay? So when Barbie gets back from the real world with America Ferrera and her daughter, they come back to Barbie land, and they see that the Kens have taken over, okay? And so now now all the Barbies are just subservient and oppressed by the Kens. And so now they have to figure out a way to get their power back, okay? So that's when they decide to give America Ferrera this so-called profound speech. And I say it was not profound because it's nothing that I've never heard before. It's something that has been said in a lot of movies. This is not the first movie to say, as a woman, it's so hard because you got to be thin, but you don't want to be too thin. You got to earn money, but you don't want to earn too much money. This is not the first time we've heard this before. So it was not like a new experience to hear this type of speech. And so that speech in itself is what snaps all the Barbies out of this trance. And so once they're snapped out of the trance, they then go and regain power over over the men and take over Barbie land again by voting. And that ultimately is the plot of the movie. And then also in the end, Barbie decides to go back into the real world, which makes no sense because she actually hated the real world. So in the end, she goes back into the real world, and you're thinking she's getting out of the car to go into a job interview, but she's actually going to see a gynecologist. So that, in a summary, is the plot of the film. The movie was actually very lazily written. There's just so many parts of the plot that just didn't even tie in together, and it didn't make sense. Why would Barbie go back to the real world when she actually hated the real world? There was a scene where Ruth, the founder of Barbie, actually has Barbie in this little white luminescent room, and she's like, close your eyes, and it was just very, very odd. This is actually one of the biggest things that pissed me off about this movie, and it was the dynamic between Barbie and Ken. So Barbie and Ken, as we know it, were like in a relationship. Like they were like besties, they loved each other. Barbie and Ken were just so loving and like friendly towards each other. And in the movie, Barbie treated Ken like complete and utter trash. And it was so repulsive to be in the cinema and actually feel it, like to see it on screen. It was like, oh my God, like why is she treating Ken like that? He's supposed to be her best friend. Like, you know, it was just so gross. And then like at one point he leaned in for a kiss and she was like, and she was just it just gave off like mean girl energy. I did not like it at all. We all know that Barbie and Ken are literally besties. When you think about Barbie and Ken, you think about yin and yang. They're like, you know, two peas in a pod. There was actually a Barbie airline thing that came out, and like Ken was the pilot and Barbie was the flight attendant. Very popular. And so for her to treat Ken like this in the movie was so disturbing, like for me. And it's just like the Barbie in this film just lacked so much empathy. As a, you know, just as a woman, as a feminine woman, she just lacked so much empathy, and she was so crude and so brash to Ken. It was almost like she was like, get away from me. Like it kind of gave that energy. It was like, get away from me. You're Ken. I'm Barbie. You're over there. I'm over here. I would have loved to see Ken and Barbie in a loving, friendly dynamic. I think that would have been so beautiful. Another thing wrong with this film was the deceptive trailer. It was pretty much a wolf in sheep's clothing. How dare you deceive your audience? How dare you break your audience trust? And people might argue, well, they made a lot of money, so it wasn't a wrong move. From a moral standpoint, it actually was wrong. You painted this idea that people were going to get Barbie, the friendly, happy, preppy Barbie that we all know and admire. And it was going to be a fun-filled movie that was lighthearted and humorous. The surprise of many, it was a film that pushed the idea of white feminism, because what they did was actually wrong. Then you paint it as it not being a kids movie when you knew that there were still going to be kids that came to this movie because it had the Barbie name attached to it. So you gave us like this shiny box with like glitter and sparkles and sound effects just for us to open it and find nothing inside. And that is disturbing to me. This is transgender Barbie. I personally have nothing against transgenders. However, when they are in close proximity to children and what they consume, I have a problem with that. The deep voice of this Barbie, in contrast with the feminine clothing that the Barbie was wearing, was done intentionally to cause confusion of the audience. Another thing I did not like is the characters' personalities. First of all, why was everybody calling each other Barbie? Like, I did not like that. Why couldn't they have, I know they're all Barbies, but like, they could have did that differently. It was just odd. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Ken. Hi, Ken. Hi, Barbie. It was like, you know what I mean? At least the lead Barbie was stereotypical Barbie. So why not call each one of them what exactly they are? Oh, I'm a pilot Barbie. Oh, I'm Dr. Barbie. Hi, I'm lawyer Barbie. Why try to take away each of their individuality and what their Barbie is identified as? You see, by lumping them all into one little thing. I just felt it was very odd, and it was just, again, another lazy move by the writers. And also the characters, they had no sense of like relatable type of personalities. There was no character in the film that I consider to be relatable. The only character that I felt was slightly likable out of the Barbie movie was Ken. That was the only character that I feel like carried that whole film. Ken carried the whole Barbie movie. Like, it's crazy. But other than that, there was no other character in the film that was likable. The teenage girl, no. America Ferrera, no. President Barbie, she had like 2 or 3 lines. Who else? America Ferrera's husband had like 1 or 2 lines. Who else? Will Ferrell was freaking cringe. Every single scene he was in, I was like, what is this guy doing here? It was just cringe, all of it. Who else? Oh, there was a guy that was in the Mattel building, and he had a couple lines, and he, at one point he said, I have the least important role at this company. Does that make me a woman? I mean, there was nobody in this film that was actually likable besides Ken. This film also insinuates toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, all of which are at all-time highs in society today. I believe it was 114 minutes and not have a single character that's likable or relatable. It's pretty creepy. So the characters are also, they got the characters wrong as well. They should have gave, I know these characters are toys, but they should have gave at least some sort of uniqueness or personality to the characters. Again, lazy on the writer's part. One thing that Hollywood has done time and time again is to input what seems to be offensive but subliminal messages and disguise them as a joke for comedic effect. The marketing and the Barbie name itself is what really sold the film and people's curiosity to see what they were going to do with the film. I don't believe that the writing, the plot, the characters, I do not believe that they sold this film. I really don't. I believe the Barbie name itself, which is a very powerful and prominent name around the world, sold this film. And the marketing, these Hollywood giants, these executives put millions into this marketing. Like, I mean, sometimes when you think about marketing and being able to sell a product, it's how you can get it into people's faces. Even if it's not a good quality product, it's how can you get it into people's faces so they have no choice but to freaking buy it. And they did it. They convinced people that, you know, you have to watch this film. You have to post this on your social media. It was everywhere. The marketing was like, they worked overtime. They were everywhere. And I know that this movie was literally pushed by these huge Hollywood executives, these old men in these suits, and they were literally they pushed all this money out into this film. They literally sat at a table and saw the script. They saw all the aspects of this film, and they said, "We love it." I mean, it's scary. It really, really is, because you have to think, like, what exactly is their deeper motive behind this? There is something deeper. Whether or not you want to admit it or not, there is something deeper behind this. And I have an issue with that. I actually grew up like playing with Barbie dolls. I love Barbie. I love Barbie. I had the Barbie dream house. I had all the Barbie stuff. And to go into this film with this nostalgia of you growing up with Barbies and you thinking they're gonna do the film, you thinking they're gonna do Barbie justice, they actually shatter any type of positive like note, like idea that you have about Barbie. It's literally shattered by the end of this film. The Barbie that I know was not the Barbie that was in that film. I want to get into the things that this film actually did get right. Now, I will start by saying that I absolutely love the costume and wardrobes in this film. Honestly, everybody who was dressed was actually dressed to perfection. I literally loved all of the outfits. I loved the costumes. I also love the set design as well. I thought they were really, really nice. So I will give that to that individual who was in charge of the costume, the wardrobe, the set design, even makeup actually did some things as well. I will give that to them. Like, they understood the assignment, and I will give credit where it's due. They did a fantastic job. And again, I absolutely loved the wardrobes, the accessories, the hair. The soundtrack of this movie was actually pretty decent. So that's another thing I guess they did well in this film. This movie was so overrated and definitely overhyped for sure. I don't even want to like remember watching that film. Like, that's how much I don't even want it in my memory bank. But yeah, that is my review of the Barbie movie. I feel like it was not a good movie. I used to play with Barbie, and that's the representation that they give us. It's disappointing. People who will be like, it was a masterpiece, and honestly, I'm concerned for you. I'm honestly shocked by how bad they ruined Barbie. This is the lady who actually directed the Barbie movie. Her name is Greta Gerwig. She was actually told by executives to remove several scenes from the Barbie movie, which she refused. So the executives are just as equally as responsible as she is in this cash grab scheme. The people who say, well, it wasn't a kid's movie, it's just a movie, why are you taking it so seriously? I have no choice but to conclude that you are an idiot. And that, folks, completes my review of the Barbie movie. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe.